Before I lived where I do now, I used to live in a neighborhood in the suburbs of Alabama, specifically in Crestwood, on South Hall Road. The house was not really old and had been built in 1963 or thereabout. From what I remember, we really did not have any other kids in the neighborhood. It was full of old folks. My grandparents, on my father's side, live about 3 houses down opposite of the street. I was probably about 5 years of age, maybe older, but definitely no more than 7.5 because that's when we moved. The house had an addition to it dubbed the playroom downstairs that myself and my younger brother were never fond of going in by ourselves, especially at night. Creepy feelings, but nothing ever happened in that room. I have always considered myself a practical person even when I was a child. But what I am about to say is absolutely true to the experience I had. It only happened once, but it was terrifying. One night, must have been during the summer, I was lying in my bed hot, uncomfortable and unable to sleep. I don't remember the time, but it was pretty late. I remember getting up and going into my parents' room and climbing into their bed where a ceiling fan was on. I got between my father's and mother's legs and was lying on my back. At the bottom of the bed there is a footboard, a thick post that ran across the bottom slightly above the mattress. This is where I had and would often prop my feet up or press with my foot against it. I was lying in the bed for what seemed a while. The ceiling fan above me was on and I was aware my surroundings still restless. The 2 pull strings on the fan used to turn up the speed and turn on the fan light were clicking together. I remember just staring at its movements, thinking to myself, I wish they would stop clicking. Not soon after, I hear a noise at the foot of the bed. I look down and see a black panther gnawing the post, seemingly trying to get at my foot. This thing was as clear as the nose on my face. I remember the yellow eyes. I was so terrified that I had loss of breath and remember that I had to consciously take in a breath to scream. I let out a blood-curdling scream that shot both parents awake. Frantically I climbed back up toward the headboard between my parents, keeping my eye on this thing. My mother started screaming and my dad shot out of bed, turning on the lamp on his nightstand. The second that light went on, the figure poofed, vanishing instantly. My parents were shaken by the sudden awaking and I was crying, terrified at what I had witnessed. I explained what I saw and my mother and I stayed in bed. I clung to her like glue. My father cautiously checked all around but saw nothing. It took convincing, but I was shown that there was nothing there. My parents to this day chalk it up as a nightmare, but I was absolutely awake and tell them so. This was so vivid and terrified me so much that it has been kind of hard to forget 30+ years later. To this day I cannot explain exactly what that was because it looked and sounded like a living, breathing black panther, but the fact that it vanished the way it did with no trace has me absolutely stumped. The doors and windows were all shut. Nothing was in there when I left my room and went into their room. This thing was there one moment and gone the next. Longer than 5 seconds. I absolutely don't have any other explanation besides paranormal. But I never saw it again and nothing has ever appeared since in my life. I'm now 36 by the time I'm writing this. There was some uneasy feeling whenever my brother and I were alone, but I think that was just being really young and afraid of the dark, quiet as kids usually are. I don't spook real easy. And as a kid loved scary things like the amusement park haunted house. I would even position myself at bottom of my bed and so I could look into my parents' bedroom off the reflection of the mirror to watch late night TV. Tales of the Crypt fascinated me, but it never scared me, so I don't think that has anything to do with it. I was old enough that I could discern a nightmare from reality and I'm convinced it was not that. I will add a few additional notes and details. Before I was born, or at least when very young, my grandmother would have one of her best friends over to her house, the one down the street, and would hold seances using Ouija boards. I'm repeating what I was told, but from what I remember, the stories go like this. They asked the spirit if it was good or bad and it responded bad. Evidently this spooked them enough that they quit doing it. But for the longest time those Ouija boards, two of them, a smaller one and I guess the standard one everyone seems to know, ended up in the bottom of our kitchen pantry laying against the wall. I remember once or twice getting them out and spelling my name and various words, learning my ABC and numbers with them when I was really young, maybe 3 or 4. These were eventually thrown out at some point or sold in a garage sale. But nothing strange ever happened in the kitchen or pantry nor with the boards themselves. At least not around me that I know of. But that's the only thing I can think of, though that's an afterthought. I also have Cherokee in my blood, though it's so far removed I doubt it has anything to do with this. I have more Frankish descent from my mother's side of the family. Speaking of parents, my mother has protector personality and tries to calm and have everyone get along. My father has always had little patience and has a quick, fiery temper. My younger brother has a follower personality. I have a creative and inquisitive personality, but very based, I like to think. Anyway, I've always wondered what it was that I saw exactly, because last time I checked, Black Panthers just don't turn up in bedroom and vanish when the light turns on. I'm wondering if anyone has had something similar happen or could shed some light on this event. I tried listing everything I could possibly think that might have a possible link or connection, but I'm more curious than anything. This is the one event in my life I can't practically explain. I saw what I saw and this is how I saw it.